Hey everybody, welcome to the Growers Live Show, at least the first official Growers Live Show. I am super excited to be here tonight and hosting the show on the No-Till Growers channel. A couple of announcements before we get started tonight, and we'll bring on Ilana and Zach from Levity Farms in a minute. But I just want to thank everyone for showing up tonight and being part of all this. We're super excited to be bringing in farmers and growers from all over the place and talking about no-till and all sorts of other stuff. So super excited. A couple of things I want to talk about. First is we're going to be talking more about the event that we're going to be having in February with Jared of Jared's Real Food and Stephen Cornett of Nature's Always Right, and that will be in San Diego. So if you are interested in that, check out the tickets on the No-Till Growers website. And we're also working really hard to get more video content up on the Patreon page. So there's going to be stuff going up every week from farms that I'm visiting. And if you are interested in that sort of thing, consider signing up for the Patreon page. As little as $2 a month will get you all the access to all that stuff. And there's going to be tons of cool stuff in there. And if you aren't already subscribed to this channel, please hit subscribe. It really helps us grow the channel and, have a stronger community here. So, and if you haven't checked out my channel, go check out that too. But anyways, hopefully you guys are already on board with all this stuff. We had a great time in Kentucky. If you haven't heard us talking about that before at the first intensive workshop, and it was just the people there and everything was incredible, the energy level, and it really felt like there was something really cool and really special happening. So anyways, you're not here to hear me talk. Let's get Ilana and Zach in here. And just so you guys know, Jesse is also over there in the chat. So I'm not chatting. If you see the No-Till Growers thing pop up there, that is Jesse. So you can interact with him too. Anyways, let's bring them in here. And just so you also know that I'll be taking questions from Patreon members first. So in the future, if you have questions for any of the guests on the show, you can submit those ahead of time on the Patreon page. And we will be doing this show every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And the upcoming guests, we're going to have Jared Smith of Jared's Real Food. We're also going to have Daniel Mays of Frith Farm and Sean Yadnicek of Wild Hope Farm. So those are some of the guests coming up in the next couple weeks. Anyways, as promised, let's get them in there. How's it going, guys?
Hey, what's up, Josh?
Hey, doing awesome. I'm so happy you guys are here. This is awesome, right? Live
This is cool.
TV,
I like it.
live farming television, or whatever you want to call this, YouTube. Who knew, right? Anyways, do you guys want to talk a little bit? I don't know the audience here if they're familiar with what you guys are doing, where you are. To talk a little bit about your farm and maybe your background. Just a couple minutes, just to share sort of some stuff so people can know where you guys are coming from.
Cool. Thanks everybody for tuning into this. This is a really cool thing that's happening, and we're really honored and happy to be a part of it. My name is Zach.
I'm Ilana.
We run Levity Farms with our dog and our new baby daughter, who's only a month old. So we're located about 30 minutes north of Atlanta, Georgia, and we farm a little bit less than 3/4 of an acre, and we rent a field from an old family friend. So we do high intensive rotation, gardening, farming. We implement permaculture design into our system. We've been on site for 3 years now, so we're rounding out our 3rd year, going into our 4th, and really happy about that. We work very close with chefs. We started the farm that way, and we really love it. We love the excitement that the chefs get with the food, and we both worked in the restaurant industry before this.
We're also a first generation farm, so this is all, there was some study before the farm started, but it's very much learn as we go. We weren't handed down land or techniques or tools, or it's been very learn as you go. Learn as we go.
We did intern on a farm in North Georgia together. I was finishing up a horticulture science associate's degree at Chattahoochee Tech, and was volunteering at a farm every week, and started getting obsessed with it, and called Ilana. And this was before we were dating. I was like, you got to come see this farm. And she came up and saw it, and she fell in love. And then we were just like, okay, let's do this. So we spent 2016 piecing together the business plan, broke ground the end of 2016, and just started hustling and selling and trying to pay the bills and make it work. And a lot of it works, a lot of it doesn't, but there's a lot of learning, and yeah.
Okay, so how much, you said you're on lease land, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, how much cultivated land are you guys working with right now?
It's a little under 3/4 of an acre. Our
Okay.
pasture is 2.5 acres that we have, but it's interesting because it's 3 terraced levels, so it's a weird shape. It's not just flat land. So we really had to work with the flow of the water there.
So it makes it a little bit trickier than your average, not average, but then a big flat rectangle field where everything's on the same level. You can have long continuous rows and beds. Because we're working on contour, it creates, there's some more grass in between plots and there's different maintenance requirements, but it's also very aesthetically appealing. And it also creates, kind of like Zach said, the 3 different terraces almost create 3 different microclimates. So at any given point, the temperature at the top of the field could be a few degrees warmer or cooler than the temperature in the bottom plot. So one plot can freeze over and one plot doesn't, and we can kind of plan for that with what we plant where.
So what are you doing in the pasture right now? Are you have animals or anything else going on?
Nope, we're just annual produce, so we don't have any animals at the moment just because we are on the lease land.
And we don't live on site. If we,
Okay.
We live about 10 minutes away from the farm, and we've slowly been moving closer to the farm over the past 3 years since we started. But we like where we're at now, and we just commute there daily, and it seems to work out.
Cool. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to have you guys on here is obviously your young energy and sort of go-getting attitude, right? And also, like, I like to focus on southern growers as well. I mean, you guys are further south than me, but we were talking about this ahead of time that there's not a ton of content online about growers in the Southeast. And so, I wanted to bring your perspective as well. What do you think makes that unique for growers like us?
Well, the South has the best tasting produce of anywhere in the world. So, and that's because of our erratic climate, I believe. With with the crazy climate that's going on around here, it really pushes the plants. It really stresses them, and it really makes the roots grow deeper. It gives them that vigor that they need, and I believe it makes for a better tasting product because of anti-fragility.
Okay,
well
that's a good
said.
way. Okay. But as a farmer, it makes you pretty tough as well.
Yeah, it's crazy out there.
So
But
you
yeah,
guys, so you're working on, we were talking about this before, but you guys are working on more protected culture. You think that's going to be important moving forwards?
oh yeah, we're always trying something new. Our systems are always changing and always evolving. So each year we've kind of added a new type of caterpillar tunnel greenhouse situation from just materials that we've had on hand or that we've sourced from different places. And actually, recently, a couple days ago, I took them all down because I'm ready to start fresh over everything I've learned from the past 3 years and build them correctly so I can enter and exit them without, crawling inside.
I hear you, man. I think a lot of us bootstrap pretty hard at the beginning, just like, let's make this work. I'll just work a little bit harder. And then you're like, now I know how this is supposed to be. Like, let's get this a little bit nicer. So we got to work on this every day.
Part of it. I think it's really good learning to just get out there and just whatever you have, make it work and get started. Whatever you can do to get started growing, do it.
Absolutely. All right. So I haven't seen too many questions. Guys, if you have questions, leave them in the comments and we'll get that rolling. And I do have one question from the Patreon member. And the question is about no-till flower growing. Are you guys growing flowers?
We have a very small flower production.
Okay.
And it's relatively hands-off. We do a lot of zinnias, which kind of grow pretty well themselves and don't require a ton of maintenance. Last year we had a really big flower production. This year we had a decent flower production, but it was largely a pollinator garden for the farm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we have a lot of yarrow planted around the field. We have some burns and swales, and the yarrow provides some really nice flowers. And there's also echinacea on there. We've got
The bee balm this year.
Yeah, Monarda bee balm, and we kind of intersperse those with some different herbs, some lavender, mountain mint, and in between all those we have comfrey plants. So those provide some nice flowers, and sometimes we'll cut them, but sometimes we'll just kind of leave them.
And so where are your sales outlets? Are you selling mostly to restaurants?
Mostly to restaurants. About 75% of our sales go to chefs down in the Atlanta area and some North Metro restaurants. We do one farmers market in Roswell, right down the street on Saturday, in between May and November. And we love them both. We love doing the farmers market as a way to see our family and friends and to keep in touch with the people who shop at the market.
Stay connected with the farming community.
Yeah, and the people who shop at the market, they're there. I mean, they're diehard. I mean,
Rain, shine, frost.
Yeah, tornado.
Yeah. Wildfire.
Yeah, they're there. And, you know, we want to be there for them. And we also, we love food. We love every aspect of food and what's going on. And Atlanta is becoming such a foodie city. All these restaurants are opening up. And a lot of the top-rated restaurants are using local food. I mean, if you're not using local food at this point as a restaurant, it's not really going to work.
Kind of falling behind.
So there's endless opportunities of places to sell, and we just love going to the restaurants with like a new product and showing the chefs, and then just getting so excited about it, and then showcasing on the menu, and they're just very appreciative of the work and the product.
I find that to be true too, and you know, I don't know like the Raleigh market where I am versus Atlanta, but yeah, the chefs, once you get to know them and you have that relationship, they're just like, they're so happy to bring in the produce that you bring, because like, we can't get this unless you bring it to us. So they're not going to get the same quality elsewhere. With the flowers, I know you said it's really small, but like, is that something, if are you selling them, or you bring them to market? How are you moving that stuff?
Yeah, so we do sell them in market. We'll make little flower bunches, and we just call them farm flower bunches. We just get flowers from around the field. We have one designated plot where we grow the zinnias, and it's interesting. Like, and speaking of no-till, the zinnia seeds will just reseed every year, and so it's become like a zinnia / holy basil plot. So we just kind of let it come back, and the flowers just kind of grow up. And there's a lot of grass that kind of grows up with it. But it's also kind of fun to get in there and forage a little bit for the flowers. And it also provides like a nice little habitat for some bigger critters, and to kind of make the soil food web a little bit more complete, have a space for them to be. They do get into the farm at times, but...
So like Zach said, we have our farm flower bouquets. We'll harvest some of the zinnias that we grew. We tried straw flowers this year. Those were a little higher maintenance than we were prepared for.
And we tried some dahlias. We actually just got our first dahlia to bloom like 2 weeks ago, or about a month and a half.
Well, several weeks
ago.
But we'll just do like little $5 bunches at the market, and then sometimes our chefs or whoever is ordering flowers for the restaurant will like to order just like a little bundle of flowers for the bar, or something to put on, you know, the expo line, or something to put in the bathroom or something. But it's not a really large part of our business.
It is a great upsell though. So if you're selling to a restaurant and you have flowers, make a little mason jar of a bouquet and bring it in and be like, hey, do you want to throw these up on your host stand? Give $10. And most times they're like, okay, yeah, that works great. They keep the mason jar, and then every week you bring in another little bunch for them, and it kind of changes throughout the season. We wanted to make sure we stayed focused on the produce,
the edible
and
crops.
Make sure that we were really getting into those and learning those properly before we expand too much into flowers and stuff.
That makes sense. I know I have been tempted to try to do some flowers, but I'm like, I don't know how to move these. I don't go to market. So, you know, maybe a small amount could be pushed through restaurant outlets, but I know my chef's been asking for edible flowers, so that might be something I'm considering for next year too.
We do a lot of edible flowers. We do, borage is just great.
Oh, it's a great producer, great sell, delicious.
Yeah. We love growing nasturtium. Those are awesome.
Yeah, nasturtium has been asked quite a bit from my crew, so that's something I'm considering for next year.
What a great flavor too! It's like a spiciness to it.
Like a sweet and spicy.
Absolutely. All right, got a couple questions here. What are a couple of big changes you want to make for next year? And yeah, this is what I was going to tack on. Jenny Jack Farm is asking about, you know, what's up with the baby, and how's that integration going? So if you guys don't know, you guys have a baby girl just off camera right now, right? And she's
starting to squirm a little bit.
You said like 4 weeks old?
Yeah, she's a month
today.
old.
Well, congratulations, guys, first of all. But
Thanks.
so that's the question here is, talk about changes for next year and how you're going to integrate your new baby into your busy lives.
Yep. So the big change for next year is we're going to have a baby on site with us. So that's going to be interesting. Ilana is going to be working more full time with us as well. And as far as like infrastructure changes, we're going to be installing some new caterpillar tunnels and a new germinating greenhouse that's going to be built a little bit more proper than the one that we had. There's a little bit more room to maneuver through. And I guess we just aim to keep things tight, keep things clean, and make sure that we're keeping up correctly with QuickBooks, make sure that our accounting is looking solid, make sure the books are kept correctly, and also bring someone on as an employee, hopefully, and learn how to do payroll, learn how to build an employee handbook. I think that's some things.
Those are some good ones. As far as the baby goes, we were talking about this a little bit before the stream started, but we are, a lot of couples have their careers or their jobs or their lifestyles established, and then, oh, we're pregnant. How are we going to work a baby into this? Well, when Zach and I started the farm, or started talking about the farm several years ago, part of the reason that we wanted to farm together is because we wanted to have a baby and have a family together. And so it's been years in the making that we've been talking about how we're going to set up our lives so that it'll be conducive to raising a child or children the way we think we want them to be raised. So the farm is actually geared toward bringing a child on. So Zach built a really cool, 6x6, 8x6?
It's a 7x8.
7x8. I would have gotten there eventually. A little 7x8 insulated, we call it the cottage, but it's basically a glorified shed with a window and an AC unit.
Baby zone.
So we have like a little baby, crash pad at the farm for when she takes her very long naps, which are she's totally going to take long naps all of her childhood. Can definitely guarantee that.
Let's not joke about this. Zach's going to be taking naps in there like siestas
Right.
in the summer, air conditioning.
I've actually learned how to take a nap, and this is something that I've learned this year, past couple of years. It works great. A 20-minute nap. So you set your alarm for 20 minutes on your phone. You lay on your back completely still, and you close your eyes. And you don't move. And you have the full intention of going to sleep. And after you start to do that a couple times and you start to get into it, I guarantee you can learn how to be in full deep sleep within like 2-3 minutes. Your alarm goes off, and after 20 minutes you wake up, you're fully rested.
Maybe you're fully rested. It's true. Sometimes I walk in the living room and I say, "Hey, Zach, what's going on?" He says, "I'm going to take a nap." And then he's just instantly asleep. Falls asleep so fast.
You just got to tune out.
I'm the same way. My wife is like, "How do you fall asleep so fast?" I'm like, "I don't know. You just turn off." So, all right. So the big things are, Zach, you're gonna be working on naps for next year. It sounds like your napping strategy.
I should say nap hard.
Those are the Levity Farms t-shirts.
Yeah, and it'll say Levity Farms and then nap hard on the back or something. But you guys were really talking about. So this is now what will be year 4. Is that right for you guys?
Yeah.
2020.
So really focusing on efficiencies, like streamlining, staying on top of stuff, just being professional, trying to grow the business. So nothing really specific, but just trying to basically improve operations.
I'd say if we had one sort of kind of like an umbrella title, I would call it improving the climate resiliency of our farm. Some new cat tunnels, a little bit more ground cover.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like
basically generally preparing, because we saw, as we all know, we saw some extremes on both ends of the spectrum this year. We were just talking about record highs just a couple weeks before record lows. And that is just kind of not even really out of the norm anymore. That's just what it's like to grow food in Georgia now. So we just want to leave as little up to chance as possible and become as resilient as possible with the ever-changing and unexpected climate shifts.
Thinking like smaller hoops, like 10-foot conduit bent. They can go over 2 beds that drill a hole through them, throw some wire through it, turnbuckle to 2 dead men. So you can have a station at each plot that has like shea cloth, Ag 19, Ag 50, plastic, protect net, all right there for each plot. So it's like
you have to walk all the way across the field to get something for all the way over there, and then it's the wrong size. You have to go all the way back.
Yep, and having all that standardized. Actually, I take it all back. That's our main goal for 2020.
Okay. Yeah, I have some of those 10-foot conduits for low tunnels for winter stuff. And they do make a big difference. They are a pain to get in and out of all the time, but it's a lot cheaper than tunnels. But I agree, man. I think many beds as you can cover with plastic is going to be beneficial. I always joke I'd cover the whole farm in plastic if I could.
Yeah,
plastic farms.
There's something that I think that vegetables taste different if they're grown and they're just exposed to the elements if they're grown and exposed to the elements, or they're grown in plastic, like they're different. They might not look as pretty if they're grown with the elements, but I think there's a difference. I think there's more vigor to the crop if they're grown just outside. Might not all survive, but the ones that do, maybe, who knows.
Okay. So it sounds like you're into like stressing out plants for flavor. Is that like a strategy, or is that just your rationalization? Like, oh, it was a really tough year. They taste really good though.
No, I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
Maybe a little both. I mean, we experiment all the time with different types of mulches, like we'll use landscape fabric for an entire plot and transplanting that. We'll use a paper pot transplant or another one and throw shea cloth over that. So we don't have one serious standardized full system that we use. I guess our system is to keep trying stuff until it works properly.
Try to remain adaptable and resilient. Like I said, it's our first generation farm, so we're figuring it all out, and we're only wrapping up our third year, so we're still trying new systems and implementing tweaks here and there.
We're making a living off it though, so it's working.
Right. Can you guys talk a little bit about your bed system, or sort of things you're adding or mulching, or any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we bring in compost, and I've got a compost pile, but it's very difficult to turn and it gets really big. So I don't use that compost in the field. So
it's practically a whole job in itself, just turning and maintaining enough compost for an operation the size of ours. So.
We do use no-till methods. So I have a BCS. I've got a 2-wheel tractor with a tiller on it. And it's great for like breaking the beds open and kind of getting things started. But also one special thing about our farm is all of our plots are standardized 50-foot plots by 25 feet. So it's like 6 beds in there. And we have a lot of those kind of scattered across the field. And they're all different. So we do something kind of different on each one to try it out. So we have some plots in there that we only till once at the very, very beginning. And we've been like really focusing on just like keeping this with no-till, like adding compost to it, pulling the weeds out when we can, tarping it, but not for too long. And then certain plots where we've had to go back, if it gets covered in grass, we'll have to re-till it, kind of tarp it and kill that grass, and then build the beds back up. We were raising the beds by hand for a while, but this past summer, a buddy of ours let us borrow his rotary plow to try it out, to raise some beds. And I liked it. It worked out. I didn't do it for all of our beds in the farm, but for a couple of the plots we did just to see how it would work out. And I think for some longer standing crops, it could work pretty well. We use dehydrated poultry manure as fertilizer. I think it's a 5-4-3. And we add azomite to the soil. We do compost tea regimens, usually like at the beginning of the season, around spring. We'll just keep the bubbler going. We're always bringing it out to the field. And recently we tried this new product from a company called Microbes, Mikrobs, and they're actually based out of Georgia. And it's really interesting. It's just like it's like microbial. It's like fungi, bacteria, all these different beneficials in it that are geared towards plants. And you just dilute it in water, and it's essentially it will like activate all the microbial life in the soil. And that's something that really excites us when they came to us and they offered this product for us to try out. And I did some trials with it, and I was actually blown away with the with the results that we had on some of our lettuce and turnips. I think it worked out
Made a
great.
big difference.
Yeah, so we've been adding that into the fields.
Do alfalfa sometimes.
Yep, we'll try alfalfa meal, feather meal. We tried some like composting in place methods. We learned that from Connor Crickmore, and we might do more of that next year. But we do a lot of cultivating, so always out there with the stirrup hoe, collinear hoe, and just trying to keep the weeds down and out. And then every so often, I'll walk by a bed and be like, "All right, this is it. I just gotta get down and hand weed this like right now, throw in a podcast, and just like make it happen."
My favorite tool that we have is the wheel hoe, the Valley Oak wheel hoe.
Love that thing.
It is so satisfying to use. It's a good workout. You can see the results. You get that nice glide. If you get just the perfect depth just below the surface of the soil, just slides right on through.
Mm-hmm.
So satisfying.
So I hope that wasn't too much or broad, but
Well, it sounds like you have a variety of strategies, maybe some stuff you're still working out to figure out. And I don't think that's uncommon. I think it takes a while to figure out what to use in what situation, and you might find that your soil is different in different parts of your field as well.
We have a new seed and feed store called Neighbors. It's in Smyrna, not too far from us. It just got a Seven Springs account. So we're really excited about that because Seven Springs is going to deliver there. So we won't have to pay for for the shipping.
Just like we said, all the plots are different in many different ways. Some of them have different drainage. Some of them hold water differently. Some of them have most of them have a singularly unique weed or pest that's specific to that plot. So that's also a reason why we use different amendments and different tools.
And that's why we crop rotate as well.
Yeah.
But we love the broad fork. We usually broad fork once a year. A couple years ago, I was broad forking after every turn, and it became extremely labor intensive for us. It was, just us in the field, and it's a lot. So figure one solid broad forking per plot per year. I think that's healthy, especially with crop rotation in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion right now amongst this style of farming and when to use the broad fork, and is it necessary after a few years or maybe once a year. I think there's a lot of discussion about that. But I think part of it, it's like you kind of just get sick of doing it. Like, is it making a difference in your fields? Like, I don't know after a few years. It depends on your soil, of course, too, or what crops are going in. Like I know Jesse likes to broad fork before he's doing carrots, for example. But, for most other things, if something's in the ground growing, if it's a cash crop or a cover crop, like the soil will be looser,
I'm sorry, I didn't even talk about our soil structure or soil type, but we don't have really thick clay soil. We've got some clay in there, but it's a nice loam. There was a horse farm before, so there were horses in the field before we got there, but there's a lot of grass. I mean, the grass is crazy. So we still have grass coming up in some of our plots, but every year, you know what? I'm going to go back a little bit. I take it all back. My main goal for 2020 is to keep the grass seeds, to keep all grass from growing to seeds. So,
we were trying to manage the grass by ourselves, and eventually we just decided it's worth it to hire a landscaper. So we hire a small company to come out and just mow the entire field, because it's about a 2-acre field, and we're only using less than 3/4 of an acre of it, and the rest is just grass.
Right.
Tall grass.
Get some animals in there, guys.
Oh man, we had animals on the farm that we interned at.
On site, we'd have animals yesterday.
Yeah, it's the part of town we're in. If we have animals and we're not there, and something were to happen, it could be an issue. Yeah. So
fair enough.
For our forever farm in the future, definitely animals. And the first of those animals, which hopefully will start soon, is going to be a big old fat worm bin. So
I don't think the neighbors are going to complain about the worm bin.
Right?
Yeah, we have to go on site to get our worm started.
So I'm kind of curious about the compost in place system. Did you guys have success with that, or can you talk a little bit about like what that entailed?
Yeah, so I just I had one plot where I used just alfalfa meal instead of compost, and just spread it out, and then I added my amendments too, and it seemed like everything worked out okay with it. I maybe could have kept the soil a little bit more moist, but then that ties into my irrigation methods, which which I didn't properly have set up for that plot. But it seems like if you do it correctly, it saves a lot of back labor, saves a lot of labor. So you can just have some, like in the field, you can have some containers of a nice mixture that you use of some dehydrated vegetable matter and maybe some kelp meal and stuff like that. And then use that in place and just spread it on top. And once you add moisture to it, then it'll kind of work in the top of the soil.
Or just straight up, like if we had a flail mower and just leaving the crops in the bed there.
Yeah, we do use a tilther. So when we add our compost, we like to tilt it into the soil as well, just to kind of mix it in. We have tried in the past just like compost on top and planting right in the compost, but I didn't really have a lot of success with that. We really like the life that's in the soil and we want to mix that with the compost, and the tilther is such a great tool to use for that. We use it all the time.
Do you use a tilther?
Yeah, I have one. I like it a lot. I know a lot of people do like it. But so are you in that process, that compost? I'm just curious because I haven't really heard too much between people talking about this. Are you adding unfinished like not decomposed vegetable matter like into the bed?
No, it's like dehydrated. It's like a meal. It's like alfalfa meal. So we get in like 50-pound bag. And
yeah, I buy that stuff too.
Yeah, and so I guess it's not feed meal, but just to get some organic matter in the soil that isn't full of water. So it's not composted. Most compost is just at water weight as well. So we're just experimenting with just putting that on the bed and having just the worms come up and eat that right there.
I've also found that, I mean, we haven't intentionally composted in place by harvesting or cutting greens and just leaving them in the bed, for example. But sometimes that just sort of happens anyway. And, you know, you harvest turnips or you harvest something and you take the greens off and you just leave them in the bed. And I find that attracts pests. At least the way that we were doing it, as opposed to intentionally trying to compost in place. So weren't really inspired to further that attempt.
Okay, cool.
That's composting in place.
Yeah, I think there's just, I don't know, there's so many approaches, and I love hearing about different, I mean, bed flipping is probably the biggest topic in this that we all talk about, is like, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? What are you adding? How do you add it? Do you do this tool then that tool? I feel like that's the most discussion.
It's impossible to standardize it. There's no one size fits all because different crops require different nutrients and different zones in the field and all the other components you're talking about with drainage.
I do like to keep the roots in the soil when we're flipping a bed as much as possible, and I feel like the wheel hoe works really, really good for that. If you get it down to science, I mean, you get that blade like just, quarter inch under the soil and just slice it right there, keep the roots in the ground, and have those composts, and then kind of rake the top off.
Okay. Question here from Benson is asking, since you work with many chefs, I'm wondering if you have any tips for working with chefs in restaurants, and what do you recommend for billing and invoicing?
Yeah, so we use QuickBooks for billing and invoicing. We were making our own invoices just from a template that we found at first, but we found that by using QuickBooks and printing out our invoices through that and reconciling through there, it makes the chefs kind of take it a little bit more seriously. Working with the chefs, be confident about your food when you're going in to sell it. That's what they want to see. It's not just the food that they're looking for. They're looking at the relationship with you as a farmer, and that's the most important thing that's being built there, because they can get turnips from anywhere, but if they get turnips from you, then they're building a relationship with you. So talk to them about what's going on with the farm. Talk to them, show them pictures,
invite them to come see the farm,
and make it presentable and keep it clean as you possibly can when bringing it into a chef. That'll set you apart from all of them. When we started our farm, we went ahead and just got these nice blue bins, and we put a little Levity sticker on it, and we would go to sell to the chefs, and we bring it in with these nice blue bins, and we made the presentation as best we could, and I think that really got us a lot of clients that way.
when you're starting relationships, when we started relationships with chefs, we found it was pretty, just like Zach said, being confident makes it pretty simple. I mean, hi, my name's Ilana. My husband and I are farming around the corner. We grew this arugula. We grow this many pounds per week, or we could provide you with this many pounds per week. Would you like to taste it? You bring them a sample.
Yeah.
Show them a little bit about, tell them a little about your story. Again, show them pictures of the farm. And chefs are, I mean, as crazy as farmers go about a cool new tool or a cool new seed, or, you know, getting together and chatting about seed catalogs and what they're going to grow in their new systems, chefs are that stoked about their field, which involves really good quality food. And if you're the person bringing in the really good quality food, they want to work with you.
Yep. Do your research on the restaurant. Look up the restaurant. Look up the front of house manager, their name. So if you walk in the front door, you recognize them, you know who to talk to. Know the chef, know the sous chef. So if the chef's not there and you see the sous chef, you know who you're talking to. Stand around the back door. Walk in the back door. Walk in the back of the kitchen. It seriously works sometimes.
But also, don't try to meet. This is the classic restaurant technique. Don't try to introduce yourself to a dinner restaurant at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Don't walk in within 2 hours of dinner service. Sometimes you can get away with going in around like good lunchtime, but 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock is a perfect time.
Yep. You try to go 5.
Shifts.
You walk in at 5 o'clock. You better just walk out because it's not happening.
But definitely bring samples your first time.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff, and I think your personality will dictate how you approach that too. I mean, Zach, you seem like the kind of guy, as you just said, you could just hang around out back and try to grab someone's attention. Not everyone's going to be comfortable with that strategy.
That's true. It's all in context.
I walk in the front. He's more of a hang around out back.
Everything's in context too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are all valid points. For me, I find that, like, I'm just adding on to this to help the person ask the question, like any sort of networking, like if you can get someone's name from someone else, like that's huge. Like, hey, I got your name from Chef whatever, and can I like set up a meeting? Like, can I come in on Tuesday morning? Let me know. And if you set up a time ahead of time with a chef, that can be, they'll give you a half an hour, and you can bring everything and sit down. You know, but pick a time where they're not busy. Don't walk in during lunch or dinner. You know, like late morning or mid afternoon is usually good, like you said. So,
except for on a Saturday or Sunday, because then that's brunch and. Nobody wants to talk to you during brunch.
And don't get discouraged. I mean, there was a lot of restaurants that we went in when we first started. We tried, and they were just like, they never called us back, and we texted them or tried to call them again, and didn't work out. So that's okay.
We also, when we started, we ended up with like 200 pounds of bok choy and 200 pounds of cell-two, so no one knew who we were.
Yeah.
We're like, how are we going to sell these specialty crops? And no one knows who we are. Why is no one buying? But you learn.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I could talk about all this stuff for a while. I mean, I think there's a lot of strategies with selling to chefs. And I think part of it, you just got to get your feet wet. You got to get in there and start building. It's relationships. That's like the key. Once you have a good relationship with the chef, you're good.
And something that we've talked about before is, instead of building a relationship with the restaurant, it's with the chef. Because just like you said, networking is important, because chefs don't stay in the same restaurant for a long time. Their sous chefs go somewhere else. Maybe they know somebody who works front of house somewhere, and you just network.
Yeah, I had a chef work somewhere, and the restaurant closed, and then 6 months later, he got a job somewhere else at a different restaurant, and he's like, hey, Josh, can I get some stuff from you? So, yeah, it's all about the chefs for sure. Let's switch topics a little bit, because we could talk about chefs selling food to chefs probably for a while. But how did the heat affect your crops this year? I know we talked about this already. Jeffrey Fortner's in Alabama, and it was terrible.
Oh, man.
What's up, Jeffrey?
We actually, so as we said, we had some record highs. I think it was 90 days in a row where the temperature was over 90 degrees.
It's a record.
Which is all kinds of records. But something that I like to think of as the silver lining. You see, people who don't grow food don't realize that it can get so hot that nothing grows. I mean, you can have too much sunlight for plants, no matter how much you water. If it's too hot, it's too hot. So we definitely had times when nothing would grow. We couldn't plant anything. It was too hot. It was physically difficult for us to be out in the field working at all, especially because I was in my third trimester, and so that didn't make things fun at all. But the silver lining to all that is, just like Zach was saying, when you stress a plant, all that, well, depending on how hard you stress a plant, but what that does is it makes the plant stronger. And for example, if your plant's not getting enough water from above, then its roots will have to dig deeper and search deeper to find moisture. And while it's searching for moisture, it's collecting more nutrients, it's producing sugars to protect itself, it's becoming sturdier and stronger. And so the silver lining of the crazy intense heat is it grows many very resilient crops.
There's
that are extra nutrient dense.
Yeah, the heat we learned a lot about proper watering techniques and how and when and where and what time of day to water and how much. And we really tested out our irrigation system. We have a well on site in our property, so that helps out a lot with our water. We have great water pressure too, so that's a great thing. But we really saw the value of having a more structured irrigation setup, which is a goal for 2020 again, to have that really set up just in case we do have this situation come across. We had a lot of problems with getting our fall crop established because we were in early October and it was hitting like upper 90s. And so by that time we were just like, this is never going to end. This is what life is now. This is totally cool. But we brought out a lot of shade cloth, and the shade cloth is so great. It works out just great. You get the plants in before sunrise, water them deep, shade cloth on top of it, make sure it stays nice and wet, and you can have a nice established crop. And we lost some stuff, and I mainly had a big problem with my carrots. My fall carrots, it turned into late summer carrots. They didn't get enough water, and so that mixed with the deer pressure with that was kind of an issue. I think maybe a thing in the future might be night farming. I could see like some big spotlights in the field and kind of like setting it up in the summer. We wake up at 10 p.m., just, farm all day, which is the night, and then, go to sleep.
All right, Zach. So I'm not crazy for thinking about this, because I was like thinking, have we had one of those big like parking lot lights, like in a big parking lot, they have the big lights up really high? Can I get one of those installed and like get out there in the evening?
Why not?
I don't know. I had the same thought too. I was just like, it's crazy. You can't. You said 90 days above 90. I think we had like 80 days above 90. And I think the thing that people don't realize that don't farm in the South is that it doesn't cool off at night either. So like the lows were like at like 75 to 80 like at night. So like the plants don't really get a break even at night. And I think that it really is hard on them. So when you're doing shade cloth it sounded like you're transplanting under shade cloth mainly. How long do you leave the shade cloth on top of them for, depending on the crop, obviously?
Like for all my lettuces, I had a pretty rigid system of transplanting them, watering them in the shade cloth for about 2 weeks straight, 50%. And right at about 2 weeks, they would start to get a little bit leggy, and I would take them off. And I would be really nervous about taking them off because it would be so hot. And it turned out okay. A lot of it turned out all right. I had one plot where I was like, you know what, I need to keep watering. And I think I watered too much. And I don't know if I'm right about this, but I think I heard the guy from Steadfast Farms say that if you overwater, sometimes that can cause bolting. And I had a situation where one of my volunteers left the overhead irrigation on for like 3 hours. She's like, hey, I watered the plot. I was like, okay, cool. How long? She's like, about 3 hours. It's like, overhead, okay, wow, that's a lot of water in the middle of the day. And then I had a lot of bolting. So I thought, well, maybe it's onto something there. So I lowered my watering after I took off the shade cloth, and the bolting slowed down a lot. So that could be something there. I'm not sure. I've got it documented in my notes, so I'll be there next summer to look at that and try again. With our transplants, like our cauliflower and our cabbages and our kales and stuff, we transplanted by hand into landscape fabric with some drip line under it and threw shade cloth over it for about 2 weeks, and those all looked great.
Established really well.
We had a great tomato year. I mean, killer tomato year. It was awesome.
That was a great thing about this heat
Yeah.
was the tomatoes and peppers were amazing.
Yeah.
Something else that's I would call the silver lining of the intense heat is arugula, for example. If you grow arugula in the nice, crisp, cool early spring, you get this crisp, cool arugula product or produce. But if you grow that same arugula in the dead summer where it's just insanely hot, mid to high 90s, it's almost another crop. It's spicy. It's got just a different texture, different flavor profile. So that's kind of a fun way to for the produce to interact with the chefs itself. It kind of changes throughout the year.
Yeah, the seasonality of it, it's something that you can bring to the table.
Literally.
I had a bed of arugula that was unedible. It was too spicy this year. It was so, like I harvested it for some chefs, and I was like, and I know this one chef like loves arugula, and he was like, dude, this is.
Oh, I know.
We had some arugula that I could have sworn was inedible. I mean, so spicy. I put one piece in my mouth. I had to spit it out. It was that spicy. And we thought, why don't we just take it to the farmer's market? You never know. Some people like really spicy greens. There are people who are diehard spicy arugula fans.
These like 90-year-old women.
It's not spicy enough for them. They can't get enough of it.
It's all like the really old women and the old men who
No,
love the
there are
farmer's
young
market.
men and young women who are probably watching this right now and love their spicy arugula, and they're not old men.
Also, for any chefs out there, we had one chef who would take the big summer spicy arugula and he would like chiffonade it and do like really thin slices of it, and he loved it. So, there's ways to use it.
Which is cool
Okay.
because we generally harvest our field greens at a baby size, but sometimes the edges of the beds will get a little bit bigger and they'll grow a little bit larger, but you don't want to waste because it's still perfectly good food. And so it's cool that there are chefs who work with all different stages of
All right. TR here is asking, where did your farm name come from?
Hey TR. So Levity it's got a couple meanings from it. So as we started this farming endeavor, we just consumed as much information as we could, all different styles of farming. We started with permaculture, and we heard about biodynamic farming. So we started reading Hugh Lovell's books, Quantum Agriculture, and where we learned about the word levity, which we thought was really cool because it's the inverse of gravity. So gravity's pulling everything down, but levity is like levitation. So things are like
the normal force.
things are coming up, and you think about a tiny little seed, and when it sprouts and grows, it's so fragile. How is it reaching up towards the sun? It's almost like magic. It's completely beautiful. And there's also
what's funny about that is we just thought it was this really beautiful, magical name for the farm, and down the road, after we'd already named the farm and we were at farmers markets and our name was kind of getting out to chefs, somebody mentioned to us something that I didn't realize, which is, we always thought that when you bring levity to a situation, it's kind of like, oh, you're making it light and fun and just sort of like, just bringing lightheartedness to the situation. Well, somebody at a farmer's market pointed out that it's not just lightheartedness. Levity, in some regards, has a connotation of almost like an inappropriate amount of lightheartedness. It's kind of like if somebody makes a joke at a funeral or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And so we realized that makes it even more appropriate for us because of our awkward timed senses of humor, and it just made it fit even better.
The world is a very serious place, and a lot of people are really serious about it. So we're very serious too. But,
so serious about the world.
But we like to have fun, and we like to work, and we like to be outside, and so we just thought the name was fitting. Thanks for asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you guys about you got to keep things light sometimes. I
Even
try
if
and what's that?
Even if it's maybe a little inappropriate.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not going to comment on that, but but yeah, I think in a lot of the videos and stuff, I like to make I try to keep at least some sort of joke or try to make it's like I can't just be serious all the time. I never can be.
Yeah, you're
so.
great with that.
Mm-hmm.
I try. I mean, Jesse on the other hand, Jesse could I don't know. He could just joke all day long. But yeah, but I think it's important. I think it's especially in the hardest times, especially with farming. You guys know that it gets heavy and hard, and when you lose crops, sometimes it's hard to find the humor in there. So
Oh, I thought the farm was over like 2 days ago. I was like, this is it. They're done. This is over.
Get a day
oh
job.
man, yeah, I know. I had that same thought last week after we got our cold weather. I was like, I walked outside, and I was just like,
What are we
no, it's
doing?
yeah. But oh, I wanted to talk. You guys were talking about something else before about getting fall crops out when it's hot out, and I think that's a serious struggle that pretty much everyone is going to have, if not now, soon. Is that you're trying to get your fall crops out like brassicas and stuff like that, where they don't want to be outside when it's that hot outside, and you have to get them established ahead of time before the cold sets in. And I think that was something I struggled with this year, was like I got my stuff out when it started to cool off, and then it's too late by the time we got a frost. So basically just shade cloth, is that the strategy?
Yeah.
And
Man, I think so, because last year I was late and I got all my fall crops out and I thought everything was good. And then we had a big, like, deep freeze in like December and they weren't established enough. And I lost a bunch of broccoli and got really discouraged about everything. So I was like, this year I'm getting them in early. I'm getting it done. And it was still like 100
And there was
degrees.
98 degrees outside.
But
it's also
they're
hard to
there.
motivate during that time because you're so beat up from the whole summer. You're like, do I want to be out there cranking, planting stuff? It's still hot out.
And
Well,
harvesting and doing weeds
we-
everywhere.
We kind of have a system when the weather's really crazy, especially in the summertime. We'll go out in the field really early in the morning, work for a few hours, and go home at like 12 or 1. Stay home for 5 or 6 hours, have some lunch, have some rest,
Watching Breaking Bad.
maybe indulge a little bit, and then maybe even have a little dinner before we go back, and then go back for a few hours because the sun sets much later in the summertime, and even farm a little bit into the night, because when that sun is just overhead, there's not a cloud in the sky. I mean, you get sick out there.
It's so hot that it's like loud. It's like you're just standing in the field and you can just hear how hot it is, and everything's just like. Ray Tyler puts it best, man. It's just like brutal. It's like devastating.
Is that a Ray
But,
Tyler
no.
thing? It's so loud. It's so hot. It's loud. Is
No,
he
I
saying
just
that?
love it. I love when he
Oh.
talks about how hot it gets in the
He's
South.
really good at articulating the brutality of the southern heat.
Yeah.
But wouldn't live without it,
You can't live
Yeah.
without it.
Nope. So Weaver Acres Farm is asking, what do your chefs buy the most of, and what does your crop mix look like during peak season?
That
Cool.
would be-
So we do a lot of salad. The salad sells great.
we call the salad our signature move.
And, every chef, and I'm realizing this now as we're moving into year 4, it's like every chef in every restaurant is different. So some chefs are only wanting to get some roots, and they've got like a salad source, and that's cool. Some chefs are like, we just want like your baby arugula, baby mizuna, just your baby cut greens. That's awesome. Some chefs are like, give me all the weird stuff. Give me like parsley root, salsify, celtus, and some Asian greens. That's great too. So it's really about the relationship and about what the chefs want. So when you're thinking about selling to chefs, it's a long-term thing. You want to really stress, like, you're building a relationship with this chef. Like, what is it that they want? Like, keep in touch with them throughout the years and kind of see what they liked. What can you grow more of for them?
We also occasionally will meet with our chefs, especially before the change of each season. We'll have a sit down and talk about what we want to grow, what they want to see on the menu. We got kind of 2 sort of categories of chefs. One is a chef who has the same menu for a long period of time, and they're looking for consistent orders. And then you have a chef, one of our favorite chefs to work with is in downtown Marietta, and he has a restaurant called The Butcher the Baker, and they change their menu, sometimes several times a week. The chef will reach out and say, what do you have this week? I want to make a menu based off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've kind of got your 2 different categories. You got some, like I said, some chefs who want the consistent orders, and then you've got some chefs who will take whatever's fun and exciting and happening right now. And we really like to work with both, get a nice balance.
It's all about like where you're at too, what the restaurants are like, where you're at, and talking to them and figure out what they want. Radishes, turnips, salad greens, those are nice things to like kind of get in there and start working with. Microgreens are also good if you have a setup to do that, just to get in the door. We sell weekly, so I'll send out a fresh sheet every single week we do that over text. So I'll make it on Monday and I'll update it with what I have, and I shoot it to my guys over text, and it's first come, first serve. So, they'll start sending me the text back of what's going on. If I run out of something, I'll text everyone, say I'm out of that. But now I kind of get a feel for what they're going to want and what they're going to get. And so I hope that answered the question.
And then some.
Yeah, I think so. I guess it's like sort of like what are your main crops? But you said salad mix.
Yeah, so we'll do like a Salanova. We do like the green and red butter Salanova heads, and then we trial a lot of different types of head lettuce. Like this year we did the panisse, which was really nice, and we did we tried the new red fire from Johnny's, which was a nich loose leaf. Might have been a little too loose for me. I like the Cherokee heads as well. Those were great. Sometimes we'll just cut the Salanova in the field, and we'll get 2 to 3 cuts off it, and we'll mix the red and green butter and maybe like a sweet crisp with some baby kale, maybe some baby mustard greens, and kind of play around with those ratios. And depending on what the chefs want, some of them just want the heads, some of them like the mix.
But definitely, I'd say greens are definitely the bulk of our regular orders, our greens. And that's also largely due to the care we take with, everything from investing in good quality seeds. The Salanova seeds aren't exactly the cheapest seeds you can get, but you get what you pay for. They're really good quality product. It's really nice to grow. It's got great taste and texture.
I'm still blown away by just like a beautiful big Salanova head. Like, man, that's just, I don't even want to cut this. It's like too beautiful and it tastes so good. So, and we eat a lot of salads ourselves.
But also because we're such a small operation, we grow what we call small batch crops. So we like to grow the weird, funky specialty produce, but we do it in really small amounts. And sometimes one chef will just sort of claim all of that one crop as soon as we have it ready. So,
and if you are going to sell to restaurants and you want to get into like selling salad mix and stuff like that, the most difficult thing that we found with that is successioning the crops and having consistency with it. So, early in the spring, we're like planting all the time and getting ready, and the days get longer and it gets hotter and things start going faster, and we got to get tomatoes in. So if we miss a beat with getting another 50 foot of Salanova in the ground, that could set us back, and that could be a bad thing, because we might have to be like, hey, we've been selling you salad for 6 months straight, but now we're going to be out for 2 weeks to like peak salad season.
And then the chef finds another farmer, and so
that's the difficult part about it.
But it kind of keeps things interesting.
I think a lot of us are growing greens for a few reasons, but one of the main, it's lucrative, right? You can get a lot of dollar per foot. And it sounds like you guys are changing your mix based on what you have. And that's been cool with some of your chefs, it sounds like. What were the Salanova varieties you guys like? You mentioned red and green butter. Is that most of it what you're growing?
I like the red and green butter best. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like those too.
Solid.
I actually didn't grow any Salanova this year. I grew other varieties, and that was kind of interesting for sure.
What'd you try?
Muir, Cherokee, and Magenta was my mix. That's
all.
I grew.
We did the Muir this year too.
That grows nice. Well in the summer.
Yeah, it actually grows great in the winter too. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
we're just cutting those heads. There's some really nice dense heads there too. It was good.
A lot of weight on those for sure. I'm a big fan of that variety. So someone here is asking about shade cloth. What you guys said 50%, or do you have a different shade cloths you guys use?
So we have 30% and 50% on deck ready to go. So we'll usually put sometimes 50% if it's just insane. If the heat out there and the sun is just brutal. 30% if it's just a little bit less, or transplants are a little bit bigger. We don't want them to get too leggy. And that works pretty well. I have even doubled up.
Wow. Okay. Are you guys putting shade cloth in your tomatoes in the summer?
No, not this year, but I'm considering it for next year, just to try, because I know they just, when it gets too hot under the caterpillar tunnel, it was just very extreme in there. And I grew some peppers under our greenhouse this year. When I say greenhouse, pretty much a caterpillar tunnel, so it's like 14 feet wide and 7 foot tall.
Kind of a DIY caterpillar tunnel.
Just top rail chain fence. But the peppers did awesome under cover. I've never grown peppers like that. And I really want to do some peppers undercover again next year. But I do want to make sure that, and I'm going to try it coming into the summer next year, is once we start getting that late August heat, throwing some shade cloth up and seeing how that goes.
But no, we have not done shade cloth over our tomatoes yet.
Okay. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, just hit the like button. That would be super cool. And also, if you have any more questions, try to get them in soon so we can get those out to Zach and Ilana before this is over. But I just want to ask you guys, I know you mentioned this before. You guys were talking about having a permaculture influence just in general. How did that change the way you set up the farm or the way you run things now?
It was our main influence, really. We started studying it around 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And the farm that we interned at, basically I started to learn about Bill Mollison and Toby Hemingway and just getting really into this idea of like homesteading. And I was going to school for horticulture science, and I wanted to work in a nursery. And I was like, man, this stuff is so cool. Like, what am I going to do? So I searched Permaculture Farm in North Georgia, and Wolf Scratch Farm came up. And I was like, oh my God, cool. Clicked on it, and they were having an open house that weekend. So I went to this farm. Long story short, I volunteered for half a year, and he asked me to come manage the field in 2015. And so his field had an entire permaculture design. So he was building fruit tree guilds and using native plants. And we were really just digging deep into the whole like form follows function type idea of like, look at your surroundings and then use this toolkit of permaculture and kind of use the existing land and work with that first. And, I feel like there's a lot of aspects to that in our farm, and things like water mitigation, pollinators and things like that, bringing in beneficials. We don't have too many like fruit trees and stuff, just since we don't own the land, but in the future we would like to. And yeah, it's been kind of an ongoing thing.
I don't know how we would have designed our beds on the contour, and considering, like you said, water mitigation without those permaculture practices, like without digging the swales and building the berms.
Yeah, the berms and swales have helped out a lot with the water flow and catching that water and slowly irrigating our fields. So that was probably good for the extreme hot of the summer. It wasn't a huge drought, but we definitely held water there for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we had
into that stuff.
yeah, I think we had a significant drought this summer here, and it was crazy. We had a really wet winter and then a really dry summer.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy. Sometimes you think the field's just never not going to be wet. I'm going to be standing in water every time I come to the farm from now on. And then a few weeks later, we're never going to get rain again. I'm just going to be standing in the desert every time I go to the farm from now on.
Well, that's the reason why you have to have strong, healthy soil, so it can hold that moisture.
what are you guys using for irrigation? I know you were talking about a lot of overhead stuff.
Yeah, so we have a well, and our irrigation is tricky because all of our plots are all separate, and we have like 12, I believe, something like that. But each one has its own irrigation system. So what I try to do is for each plot, I have 3 wobblers set up with half-inch poly tubing connecting those, and I just have the wobblers set up on some rebar, and just pound the rebar in the middle of the plot, and that seems to work really well. And then going into that same plot, I've got another piece of poly tubing with some pieces where you can plug in some drip tape. So we'll use drip tape and get that going when it's really hot. And we try to put drip tape on most stuff that we use, or most stuff that we grow, I'm sorry. However, some stuff we never even really need it. We never use it, just because we'll get some good rain, and our soil does hold moisture really well. So,
but just like Zach was talking about, setting up the stations at each plot next year with some tubing or some shade cloth or row cover, whatever, just kind of set up throughout the field. We're also talking about setting up a full drip line setup and wobbler setup for each plot and keeping those out there too. So some crops that need the drip tape, we'll have it all set up. We can just quickly move it over the plot, screw it in, and turn it on.
Yeah, because we move it around, and we've had trouble like storing drip tape. Like, it's so crazy. It gets so messy.
It gets bent and knotted up.
Yeah,
how do you do it?
I've got this idea. I want to get like.
I don't use it.
You don't use it at all?
I have a little bit of. I only use it in my tunnel, and that's it. I can't stand it.
It's hard to use. We have had the same drip tape though for almost 3 years, and we've been able to kind of store it. But I had this idea of storing it above ground. We're taking T-posts in the ground, we're getting some like big PVC, attaching it to that, cutting them in 25-foot sections, and just sliding the drip tape in that to get it up off the ground.
A couple of our friends at Levity Farm in Atlanta, they have their drip tape storage is basically a wooden wall with I can't remember. I think they're just like large kind of hook-shaped pieces of metal sticking out, coming off the wall, and then they just kind of lay the drip tape across there. But I don't know. It just gets so tangled and bent and ripped and broken. Just needs.
I was at Sunset Market Gardens a couple days ago, and now that you're asking about this, he had them like bundled up in I don't know how many, but they were wrapped like in bunches of 10 or 20 or something. Mm-hmm. So they weren't like flopping around because they were like bunched up, and they were just laid down right next to one of his tunnels. They looked really neat and tidy. I don't know. That looked really cool.
Wait, so they're bunched up together in like one long piece?
Yeah, just the length of the tunnel. Because I mean, everything. I think everything is like the same length. All his beds are 100 feet or whatever, and they're just bunched like maybe 10 pieces or 20 pieces together, and then those were just piled up like against the side of the tunnel. It was really tidy. So it's heavy, so it's not flopping around, right? I didn't even ask about that. I'm just thinking about it because I was just there. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't found a good answer. I try to avoid it as much as possible. I'm also really bad with like cutting it with a knife or, like puncturing it. I'm just not really, I don't know, not my favorite thing.
I really like it though, because if it's too much overhead, I feel like some of the plants will get a little funky.
Yeah, it can also get burnt.
I don't think so. I think it's been debunked.
I think there's a lot of people doing combination in each plot is, having the option to do both, like overhead for getting seeds to germinate and get them established, and then drip after they get going, kind of thing too.
Yeah, also you've got crops like your lettuce, where if you're just watering from above, the lettuce will grab the water, but none of it really makes it down into the soil around the lettuce, and so that's where drip tape comes in handy because that gets up underneath the umbrella of leaves.
Cool. Anyone else have any last questions coming in? I'd be hesitant to wrap this up, but I don't see too many other questions in here. Hey guys, so if people aren't aware of what you guys are doing, how can people find out more about Levity Farms and follow what you guys are doing?
Well, our website, levityfarms.com, isn't super up to date, but it's a good starting place because our mission in life and in farming hasn't changed, and that's on there. Can certainly come and visit us. Well, not anymore, but during market season, starting in April at the Roswell Farmers and Artisans Market. Feel free to send us a message on our Instagram page, Levity Farms ATL. Our Instagram is pretty much the most updated Levity Farms media outlet. That's where we interact on Instagram daily. Probably the best way online, unless you want to come and see the farm, in which case just shoot us a message. We'd love to show you around.
Very cool. I'll leave links for that stuff in the description below. If anyone's watching this after the fact, they can click on it. So anything else you guys want to add before we close this out tonight?
We think this is awesome, and this was great. We love that you asked us to do this, and we loved all the questions that came in.
So glad that you're starting this show. It's so important because, just like you were saying, you can talk about farming all day, but having an interactive question and answer platform is a great way to keep people connected and to network farmers, to keep people from feeling like they're just talking to a wall or just reading from a wall. You read a book and you have questions. Well, where do you go?
There's I guess one other thing I could talk about. There's a really cool thing that Georgia Organics is doing in Atlanta, or I guess all of Georgia, that they just have launched this year. It's called the Farmer Championship Program. And they're working close with farmers and working close with chefs and they're documenting the sales that chefs and restaurants are doing with local farms in the area. And they're creating like this system where like, if like, I think it's a certain percentage of the restaurant's budget, it goes to like local foods. They get a certain like,
and organic.
Yeah, organic,
Local and organic.
They get a decal. There's like a sticker.
It's like a certification program for local restaurants.
Yeah, just to keep the integrity there, because there's they'll farm to table on something and call it local. Is it local? Not really sure.
But they're local Kroger.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool thing. It's kind of something new. They asked us to take part in that, and we've been pretty excited about that.
Awesome. Well, keep up the good work, guys. We'll be in touch. And yeah, I think it's important that we keep the conversation going. And I think to tag along with what you were saying, that sometimes you feel if you don't have a lot of farmers nearby that are doing similar things, it's nice to be able to connect, even if it's over a DM on Instagram or, a chat here and there. So, keep that up with everyone else out there. Like, I think everyone's checking in on each other and stuff. So that's important too.
Cool.
Thanks
Josh. That was great, man.
All right. Awesome. Hey guys, so thanks so much for joining us tonight. I had a good time, and I'm just super happy to get this ball rolling. We'll be doing this every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock with a bunch of new guests coming up. So as I mentioned before, we'll have Jared Smith of Jared's Real Food next Tuesday, and then we're getting Daniel Mace from Fifth Farm and Sean Yadnicek from Wild Hope Farm and a bunch of other people. So it's going to be super cool. And again, I just want to mention the next intensive workshop is going to be in San Diego in February with Jared Smith of Jared's Real Food, and also Stephen Cornett of Nature's Always Right. And it's going to be super neat. And if you guys don't know much about Jared, stay tuned for next week. We're going to have Jared on. He is like doing super cool permaculture mixed with lasagna gardening and really productive market gardening. It's super neat. So hope you guys show up next week to interact with Jared. But otherwise, guys, thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.